I'm so happy this morning, and I'm not quite sure why I'm happy, but I am happy this morning. But then when I think about it, I'm always happy, or mostly I'm happy. Anyway, yes, I'm rambling again. Yes, good morning, good morning. It is story time, story time. And of course, as always, with me is my spirit guide Gregor, who is standing to my right side. I have Chris on the phone. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, everyone.
Are you happy this morning, Chris?
Absolutely.
Good, good. Um, Maybe I'm sort of happy because I know it's a little bit soon. I know that you're all looking forward to all of you in the US are looking forward to Thanksgiving. Uh, but I'm British, so we don't actually celebrate Thanksgiving necessarily, although I'm always up for a free meal if anybody wants to invite me. Um, do you remember the Thanksgiving when you came down to Florida, Chris, a couple of
Yeah,
years
just a couple
ago?
of years ago.
And I had friends from England. My daughter and grandson were here. And I remember inviting you. Was Karen here from Canada? I think she was.
Yes.
And I remember inviting you, and you said, I'm only coming if we can have turkey. Do you remember?
Well, as the only Americans in the group, we had to, right?
Were you the only Americans in the group?
Oh, yes. We were surrounded by you Brits and somebody
Yes.
from Canada. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we had a fun time though, right? We really had a fun,
Absolutely.
fun time. I do believe I sent everybody off to the beach while I stayed in the kitchen cooking, which was exactly where I wanted to be. My sister was also here with her son, and yes, we had a house full of people. My friend Kay from England was here. We had a great time. It was very strange though, because none of it, well, except for you and your husband, none of us really celebrated Thanksgiving. And I do think that people did wonder at the fact that we did have a turkey sitting on the table, because in England, the turkey is for Christmas. And I know that a lot of Americans are under the misguided opinion that we Brits have roast beef on Christmas Day. Not so. We have roast beef on Sundays. We have roast beef, roast pork, roast chicken, roast lamb, which is my favourite. We have that on Sundays, and what I used to do is to rotate. 1 week lamb, 1 week pork, 1 week beef. I don't personally eat pork anymore, but I used to love the crackling on the pork. Anyway, I'm rabbiting on about cooking. But actually, I was thinking very much about Christmas, and I was talking to my daughter. We're wondering about Christmas and what to do with the lockdown. And my only little issue that I have is my puppy Cachorro. If anybody out there wants to come and stay and take Cachorro under their wing and take care of him for me, please let me know, uh, because we're looking for someone to make sure that he's okay, because he's really or he's not really quite able to travel. So my daughter wanted me to bring him on the plane, but I don't think that that's such a good idea. Anyway, enough of all of that. I was thinking about Christmas, and I was talking with my daughter about Christmas, and this is where our story comes in, because as you do when you get older, as most of us do as we get older, we sort of start to go back down memory lane, and we start to remember the different things that happened to us long ago Christmases. And this is it's an odd story. I'm not really sure it's a Christmas story, because we're not quite there, are we, to Christmas? However, let me begin with Once Upon a Time, because as you all know by now, all good stories begin with Once Upon a Time. So once upon a time, a long time ago, I was in England, and it was sort of heading up to Christmas. I do think it was somewhere around the week before Christmas, and we had snow on the ground, and we don't always have snow in England at Christmas time, but this year and on this particular time, the snow was heavy on the ground and the ice and so on and so forth. And I had a wonderful friend who I can tell you this now because it's so long ago, but I was so in love with this man, so in love with this man, but he lived quite a distance away from me. And so we would always arrange to meet, especially around Christmas time. We would arrange to meet. He would go part way and I would go part way. Now, part way meant a good 3-hour drive at least. So the morning came for me to set off and for my meeting, and there were warnings everywhere. If you don't have to go out, if you don't have to drive, if you don't have to do this and this, stay home. There are blizzards, there's snow, the motorways are mostly closed, ice on the roads, and on it went. So, of course, I talked to Grey Eagle and I said, what should I do? And really, knowing full well that if you said you can't go or don't go, that I probably would attempt it anyway. At the time, I had a car that was not, was not pristine. It often broke down. So the idea of going in this rickety old car, traveling on roads for 3 hours in order to sort of, meet my friend, it was a really crazy thing to even contemplate. However, being crazy, and as you are when you're younger, being crazy and in love and so on, and it's Christmas and I hadn't seen him for a long time, and on it goes, all that romantic stuff that we get ourselves involved in. So I asked Gregel, what did he think? And he said, now listen carefully to what he said to me. He said, you will get there and you will get back. You will get there safely. You'll get back safely. So I thought, fine. It didn't even cross my mind what would happen in between getting there and getting back. It was like, Anyway, so I set off with, as you can imagine, some trepidation. And in order to get to the highway, which I was then found out there was just one lane of the highway that was open. In order to get there, I had to go down country roads and through some villages, and it was a little bit scary, a little bit hairy, but hey, love conquers all that stuff. So I am driving along. Now, even though the roads were dangerous, it was a beautiful sunny day, a gloriously sunny day. One of those winter days when the snow is on the ground and the sun is glistening on the snow and the blizzard had stopped, but still. And I'm driving along one of these narrow country roads, and to my right, I see this flash, this really bright flash of light, sort of like a purplish light. And I looked, couldn't see anything. I looked over to the fields, couldn't see anything at all. Now, those of you who have believed in me, I'm so grateful for your support, but you might waver a little. You might have a few little doubts. I can tell you, I was working as a spiritual medium. I have my spirit guide, Grey Eagle. I have no doubts in God whatsoever. But even I, in this precise moment, wondered, what is that? So I'll tell you again. I saw this flash come up onto my left side, and it so startled me. And I looked across, thinking maybe it's a fire, or maybe I don't know what I thought. But when I looked back, eyes on the road, there was this, what I thought at first was a child sitting cross-legged on the bonnet. In America, you say the hood of my car, the front of my car. I know. I absolutely know how crazy it sounds. And here is the weirdest thing. So I'm thinking, I'm used to seeing people in the spirit world, right? I'm used to it. I'm not surprised when I see someone who is supposedly dead, but I can sit there and talk to them and have a conversation with them. But here is this, what I thought at first was a small child sitting cross-legged, wearing a strange sort of almost like a turban, but with a point in the center of it. And as I'm looking and I'm trying to connect with this, what I think is a child, he turns his head, looks over his shoulder at me, and I realize that it's not a child at all. It's a little man with a goatee beard. Have you all disappeared? Have you all left thinking, well, I thought she was real, but now I know she's crazy? Did I lose you all? You see the risk in telling these stories, right? Anyway, and I looked at him, and he smiled at me and then turned back, and that was it. And I said to Grey Eagle, what is this? Who is this? What's going on? And Grey Eagle chuckled and said, don't worry, he's going to make sure that you get there safely and that you get home safely. I accepted it. So we drove, and he sat on the hood of the car all the way there. And amazingly, even though the roads were really bad and I had some bumpy turns, and I took a long time to get there. By the time I got there, I thought, oh gosh, I'm never going to get, if only I could stay overnight, but of course I couldn't. I'm exhausted, and I finally get there and I meet my friend. However, as I arrive, I'm coming off of the motorway now, and I'm going down a ramp. And as I go down the ramp like this, the car cuts out completely. I roll down the ramp, and at the bottom of the ramp, I tell you honestly, this is a true story. I'm telling it to you and thinking, who on earth would ever believe this? I roll down the ramp, and there is a garage going down the slope. So I roll the car down and go right into the garage, and my friend is there. Anyway, of course, I go to the mechanic at the garage, and they're absolutely inundated. And so we say, well, if we leave the car there, could they possibly fix it in the next few hours? So they said they would try to fix it. And so I got in my friend's car, and off we went. We had a lovely lunch, and we had our exchanging of our gifts, and we had a lovely time. And I remember the hotel that we went into. Well, it was actually a big pub. It wasn't a hotel. It was one of these big giant pubs, and they have this huge fire going, the Christmas tree, everything's gorgeous and glorious and Christmassy. We had a superb lunch, and anyway, and we sat talking and catching up and doing all of that stuff. Anyway, it finally, sometime in the mid-afternoon, it's time for me to go home because it's an awfully long drive back, and I really wanted to get home before it got dark. So we go off to the garage, and the guy at the garage says, I'm really sorry, but I haven't had time to get to your car. So my friend lifted the bonnet, hood, whatever you'd like to call it, and he laughed at me. He said, take your tights off. And I said, what? He said, take your tights off. I said, okay. So I took my tights off, and he wrapped the tights around the whatever it was. The pump had gone or some such or another. And he said, I think that should do to get you home. But when you get home, you obviously have to get somebody to look at it, because it's only going to last you. What he said, whatever you do, don't switch the engine off. Just keep going, because if you switch the engine off, it's probably not going to start again. So he fixed it for me, and I remember driving home. And as I'm driving home, the snow starts to come down. Where did the little man disappear to? Oh, that's right. There he was, right, sitting at the front on top of the car, smiling at me. And so I drive sort of, I get about an hour away from home, and the roads are now blocked. So there are only certain roads. So Grey Eagle began to say, okay, you need to come off of the motorway and take a right here. And I'd be driving, take a left here. By this time, I had no idea where I was at all. No idea whatsoever. Take a right here, take a left. And the only thing that I could do was trust. Now, you know, it's hard for someone like me. I'm an earth sign. I like to have things organized. I like to have things prepared. So this was what you might call literally blind trust, because now my window wipers were going furiously. I could barely see out of the windscreen. I had a meeting that night with all of my students, and I was like, the windscreen was going like crazy. I was praying that the car would keep going. There was no heat. Whatever had broken with the car, it had also broken the heater. So you can imagine driving for over 3 hours, a slow, painful drive. It was probably nearer 4 hours. Going down these country roads, not knowing where I was, and trusting, and just kept saying to myself, Grey Eagle said I would get there, and he said I would get back, and he said I would get back safely, so keeping my fingers crossed. And so anyway, finally, I got to the end of my the road that I lived on, the end of the street that I lived on, and luckily my driveway sloped down. And as I literally, I swear this is a true story, I got to the top of my driveway, turned my wheels into the driveway. It was a fairly long driveway, and the car cut out. And the car just slid down into the driveway. I got there and I got back, but with a lot of incidents in the way. Blind trust is what they call it, because I couldn't see out of the windscreen, barely to see where I was driving. And I literally was guided, not just emotionally, not just spiritually, but physically guided there and back. The first thing I did when I got in was I went and ran a bath, filled it as high as I could, and climbed in and sat there for about a good half an hour or so until I'd thawed out. Amazingly, as I stepped out of the bath, the doorbell rang, and the first student came in, and the second and third, and we were able to have our meeting. Now, what happened to the little man, you might ask? And don't ask me his name, because I never found out. I'm not sure if I asked, but if I did, I don't remember. And I never saw him again until a few years later. And I was on an airplane, and we were having a lot of turbulence on the plane. And we had a bit of a scare in the sky, because the plane was dipping down and going up, and dipping down and going up. And it happened. Of course, there are no accidents. I could say coincidentally, but we know that there are no accidents. It happened that I was sitting just behind my seat was just behind the wing, so I could see out, and I could see the wing of the plane. And I'm looking out, the plane is going up and down, people are screaming, people are getting upset. And I look out of the window, and some of you will have guessed it. Yes, there he sat, this little Asian man with his goatee beard, his funny hat. He always wore a scarf that, as I was driving in the car, would be swinging out into the wind. And again, as I looked and I looked again, first of all, I could notice this thing flickering out the corner of my eye. And there he was with his scarf. He was sitting cross-legged on the wing of the plane like this, his scarf blowing in the wind. And as I looked out and looked and thought, is it? He turned and looked at me and gave me a big, big smile. And I thought, oh, okay then. We're going to be able to land the plane. We will end up being very safe. So I started to think of him as my travel companion, that person who travels with me wherever I go and keeps me safe. And as I'm talking to you and I'm saying this to you, telling you this story, Gregel is laughing. And he tells me that there are many of you listening with such disbelief at this story. Let me tell you, your disbelief at this story is nothing to my disbelief when I first saw this little man, my travel companion, and my maybe he's my angel. You know, angels do come in various shapes and sizes, and when we do our angel webinar in next month in December, I'm going to be telling you the different types of angels. I'm going to be telling you about the first time I ever met an angel, and I'm going to be telling you some angel stories. And you know, it is Christmas, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we might have a visit from an angel or two in our webinar. You never know, do you? Just never know. Anyway, so that is my story. So there it is, the end. Now I'm inviting, I'm not sure I'm doing the right thing, but I'm inviting any comments that you would like to give to me. By all means, throw them out there. Yes, I know it's a very weird story, but I thought you'd like it. I thought it's a funny story. It's a weird story. It is a true story. But some of you might think, has she finally gone? And the answer is, gosh, I hope not. All right. I do, before we start to take questions and so on, I do have a message for a lovely lady who wrote an email to us, and it was a really lovely email, and I thank you for that. And I did laugh because partway through the email she said to me, I hope you don't mind me saying, which of course I don't, but she said, I think pink is your color. And it just happens, and it happened as Chris was reading me this email, I actually got the email. I got it this morning. Chris sent it to me from the office as well, but I'd already decided and was in fact wearing pink. So I'm thinking on the same wavelength as you, my darling. Chris, what is this lovely lady's name?
Muriel.
So Muriel, just for you, I'm going to answer your question a little bit cryptically because you wrote this in an email, so I'm presuming you don't want it to be public. But look, let me be clear. This lovely, lovely man, I know that you're heartbroken that he's no longer with you physically, but can I just tell you that in a spiritual way, in every other way, he's with you. He visits with you. Gregel is putting his hand on my shoulder as I'm telling this to you, and watching over you, and also watching over your son. Now, your son could be a little bit difficult from time to time, so I'm told, so Grey Eagle tells me. But come on, he's a teenager, he's entitled. I think that he has a really good heart and is a wonderful, wonderful kid, and is also very sensitive. So, try not to worry too much about him. We all as parents worry about our children, and especially when they get to teenage years, because we really, they're the years when we could really beat them on the head and say, okay, stop that. But I do believe that he's a lovely boy, and I think that your partner, who is here with us right now, is just saying to you, Muriel, be patient. He'll come good, don't worry. And he's lovely. So be patient with your son, be patient with yourself, and know that you're not on your own. Right, Chris.
Well, it's interesting what you just said, Rosemary, because Suzanne had left you a message prior to you talking saying, wow, Rosemary, what an exciting story. What a lot of trust you've had. P.S. That's a lovely color on you.
Yeah, my daughter hates me in pink. She thinks it's too bright and too gay. I love pink. I love pink. I love it. I do. I really do. I love it. Anyway, thank you, Suzanne. That's really nice. It is a weird story, but it is a story. It is really a story about trust and about trusting, and especially with what we're going through right now, and especially with the world as it is. It is so hard for us sometimes to, I've talked about this before. So many of us, if we're asked, do you have faith? We absolutely put our hands up, no question whatsoever. Immediately our hands go up, immediately. Living your faith is something else again. It's something totally different, and it's not an easy thing to do. Living your faith, having that faith, trusting that if you're told something, if you're told you'll be safe, don't worry, trusting that that's the case, putting yourself out there. I can remember the first time I ever went on a stage with an audience of people. The first time I ever went into a spiritualist church, I broke out in hives all over my face. I looked like this big blotchy red thing. The first time I went on a stage, it was with the Young Farmers Organization. Every time you step out and you do something which is outside of your comfort zone, every time you step out and you do something that you're not sure of, it's a question of having faith in yourself, even though your knees are knocking. And certainly for me, it's about having faith in the spirit world and knowing that, no matter what, they are going to be there. They will have my back. Grey Eagle will be there supporting me and guiding me. And, so I'm very fortunate in that I've had all of these lots and lots of examples over the year of not only having faith, but living my faith and trusting and knowing that everything is going to be okay. All right, Chris, what do we have next?
So I'm going to give you some comments.
Oh, oh.
No, you're fine.
Okay, I'm going to duck. Go ahead.
Calla says, lovely story, Rosemary. Albertine says, hello, Rosemary, lovely story.
Hi,
A love story.
Yes.
Kevin sending you hearts.
Oh, Kevin, thank you.
Helen says, lovely story. And in that first part, you took a risk for love. Ah, love. Great to see and hear you today. Every blessing.
Thank you.
Heidi says, good morning. Thank you for sharing your story. I think your little man is definitely an angel. Curious, do you think that angels are separate entities than our spirit guides, or do you think they are one and the same?
Completely different, totally different. Where have you been, my darling? You haven't listened to me before, have you? Maybe you're one of our lovely newbies, but yes, angels are very, very different than spirit guides. No question.
All right. Helen says, lovely story. Oh, no, I just read that one, sorry. Cheryl says, "Not a weird story at all. He certainly must have been an angel."
Yes.
Um, all right, now I gotta scoot back up to the top here. Mark had a comment. "This story was amazing. I have wanted to ask you this. It was Christmas Eve, 2009. I left a friend's place, and a blizzard was slamming Tulsa. I missed a ramp to get on the highway, and my SUV stopped, and I was stuck in a bank of snow.
Oh God.
It was after 10 p.m., and no one was near to help me. I tried all efforts to remove the snow from the tires to no avail. I was nervous. No shovel. I put my head on my steering wheel and prayed, God, it's Christmas Eve, alone and stuck. My pup's home alone. I was desperate. Help me. Tears fell from my eyes, and it was some time. Snow was building up. So I said, one more try, and I put my car in reverse. Then suddenly I felt as though my car lifted up some, and the car slowly moved backwards far enough to see the ramp before me. Can you tell me who this was? I was awestruck, grateful to whomever it was, and finally made it home. My SUV got stuck again in my driveway and lawn, and I didn't care. I was home with my babies."
It sounds so much like my story, Mark. It's obviously our angels do those things sometimes. They appear before us unexpectedly. And, one time it can be one kind of an angel, another time it can be another type of an angel. I was thinking today about one of my angel stories, and there are our guardians. Well, anyway, I can't talk too much about it because this is for our December webinar. And I so want to enlighten you all about angels, or my experiences with angels anyway, but I do have to save those stories and those experiences for the webinar, which is in December. We're going to be doing a 3-hour webinar on our angels in December. And I cannot promise that we will have visits from angels, but I can pray for them and hope. And that's what I'm doing. All right. So carry on, Chris.
All right. Holly says, "I love your story, and my hair stood up. We believe there's a little man with white hair who lives around our house, very small and always happy. My
Oh,
daughter saw him when she was 4 years old, kicking his legs in the air, very happy. When she saw him, she was in the car and was so excited. She was shrieking, 'Look, Mommy, there's a little man.' And she described in a lot of detail. She was so excited and happy. Then another time, my neighbor was bringing over a gift for my just before Christmas, and she saw my husband fixing the lights around the bottom of our outdoor Christmas tree. As she walked up the steps, she was shocked to see a happy little man straightening the lights around the tree, and he smiled and went around the tree and then was gone. My neighbor was so surprised she threw the bag on the door handle and ran home. We think the same little happy man, the size of a dwarf if such thing exists."
wow, that's interesting. Oh, maybe we'll have a conversation one day and discover who he is or what he is to you. But it's very, very likely. We do have our angels, and they do come to visit with us. And enough about that, because I have to save these things for our webinar, right, Chris?
Yeah.
All right.
Um, there's a message from Noah. "Could you help me and my sister? We had to put down our Persian cat this morning. Can you please ask Gray Eagle if my dad was there to take her with him? You told us you would help us when we needed you."
I'm asking Grey Eagle this one because it would be so, so simple and so easy for me to say, well, of course your dad was there. But most of you know me by now. I will not do that glib stuff. I will not, do it to make myself sound good or to reassure you, because it could be that the answer is no. It could be that the answer is that maybe somebody else was there to take the cat. So of course, I'm asking a Grey Eagle, who tells me that this cat must have been sort of a bit big and fluffy and cuddly, and being described the cat. And I have a lovely man standing to my right side, along with Grey Eagle. I do believe this is your father, and the message is this. So here you go. The message is that they wrapped him gently and carried him to heaven. Him or her. I'm maybe I didn't get that message quite right. Anyway, maybe it's we wrapped her gently, right? And carried this little darling thing to heaven, where he or she, I'm confused, is safe. So please, we do grieve. I know that we do. I know that every time I've lost one of my puppies, I have grieved, but at the same time have been so grateful that they are safe, that they are well and not suffering anymore. And so be joyful for that. I know that you are. Yes, Chris.
Noah did say that it's a her.
Yeah,
So you were
when
right.
I said he, I got this poke in the ribs. It's like Grey Eagle squeezed my shoulder. I knew I got it wrong somehow or another. But when I turned to listen, I wasn't sure then what I was hearing. So anyway, so there we are.
All right. DNA says we are moving to one of 3 locations. 1, the valley. 2, the desert. Or 3, the beach. Any word for us on what we should do?
Oh gosh, and no, I'm not going to be responsible for your lives. How could I possibly be responsible for that? We all of us have to make up our own minds, and we all have, you know, we all have choices. Well, we don't all have choices actually, but when I give consultations with people and they come with questions like this, I often will give them the fors and againsts. If you do this, this is the what will happen. If you do this, this is what will happen. Sometimes, even though I'm giving them choices, I know the inevitability, and I do know that it is inevitable that you go, whatever your decision, it is inevitable that you will be where you are meant to be. But I'm letting you have that choice. I can't be responsible for other people's lives, and you must take responsibility for yourselves. Because I'm not all knowing and all seeing. Oh gosh, does that hurt me to say that? Not a bit, really. I don't know everything, and you shouldn't rely on someone like me to guide you in these these important decisions. If we were to have had a conversation about it, if you'd have had a consultation with me, for instance, we could have laid it all out, and I could have said to you, well, these are the advantage of this, and these are the advantage or the disadvantages of this, and so on and so forth. But still, I would never say to you, like people say to me, I've got the offer of 2 jobs, which one shall I take? You pick. It's your choice. So, you do have to be mindful of the fact that the choice is at the end of the day. Anybody who tells you differently, anybody you go to, any medium or psychic, or whatever you want to call them, who says to you, no, this is where you need to be, please, think carefully, because nobody in their right mind would take that responsibility away from you. Yes, Chris.
Cheryl's saying, good morning. What is
Good
the
morning.
best way to spread positivity? Thank you, Rosemary.
Oh, well, a smile goes a long way. When I was sort of I don't know, in my early 20s, I was so keen on Nat King Cole, and I loved Nat King Cole, and I loved all the old romantic movies. As my story tells you, I can be a very romantic person. It's led me into some sticky situations, but I do believe in romance, and I do believe in love, excuse me. And I always remember the Nat King Cole song, Smile Though Your Heart Is Breaking. And believe you me, I have sung that song with tears flowing from my eyes. And forcing myself in certain circumstances to especially I remember working in a pub years ago, and my life was in a mess and devastating, and I was hiding from debt collectors, which were not my debts actually, but my husband left us with all of this stuff. And I remember every time I stepped into that pub, I put a smile on my face, and I just went out there and just grit my teeth, put a smile on my face. And I can remember one time I walked in, and this lovely couple who always would come on a certain night of the week. I was early, they were early, and they said to me, "Come and sit down, talk to us." And they said, "We've noticed that no matter what, we've talked about you a lot. We feel that you're a really, really happy person." And they also said, "We notice you treat the women exactly the same as the men," because I used to work behind the bar and do the food and so on. "We see that you treat everyone the same. You don't flirt with the men, and you're nice to the women. And we think you must be a very, very happy and contented person." And my life was falling down around my ears. And I smiled and I nodded and I thanked them. And that's how you create positivity. You force it. You pretend if you have to. You grit your teeth and you go out there. And some people can't do it, or some people find it hard to do. But as in my case, I used to go in there and I would come home. Some nights I would come home and I would sit on the stairs. I remember sitting on the stairs one time crying because I couldn't get the smile off my face because it was so frozen on, and I didn't want to smile anymore, but it was frozen on there. And at some point, if you do that and you determine that you're going to be positive no matter what, and you determine that you're going to see the best in things rather than the worst in things, at some point, as happened to me, I remember driving in the car one day and the radio was on and I was singing away to the radio, and I suddenly stopped, and it suddenly hit me. I'm really smiling. This is not fake anymore. I'm really smiling. So I smiled my way through the heartache and through the heartbreak of life, and I smiled my way through the poverty, and I smiled my way through the fact that I could barely feed my daughter, never mind myself. I smiled through all of those things. I smiled through the fact that the debt collectors had been knocking on my door for over a year. I smiled through the fact that I had been threatened with foreclosure on the house, and on and on and on it goes. We all have these things. I'm no different than anybody else. We all have these things that we have to, find, and we all have these things where someone we dearly, dearly love turns from us for whatever reason, or can't be with us for whatever reason. We all have those awful things in our lives. And if we keep smiling no matter what, eventually it becomes real. That's the best thing I can tell you. It's worked for me over the years, and I go into a supermarket. I smile at everybody. People think I'm nuts sometimes. I get sort of people looking at me. What? Looking again? I don't care. Just be happy as much as you can be. And if you can't be happy, if you're feeling miserable inside, grit your teeth, smile, and force it there until it's real. Chris, what do you think to that, what I've just said?
Here's what I think. It's two things you mentioned about the romance and about trying to find something good in every situation. Here's what I would recommend. And I was touched in your office email when a gentleman purchased something for his wife. And I thought to myself, if a person's not feeling happy right now, your next webinar, Healing the Self, would make the absolutely perfect gift. And if it's a husband to wife, a wife to husband, partner to partner, I mean, how much more awesome is that and romantic is that than to give them such a gift? So that's the November 21st Healing the Self webinar.
That's next week. Doing it together would be a really fantastic way for couples to get together as well, and to try to sort out differences and so on. I never thought of it that way, Chris. What was the second thing?
Well, just the fact that the individual who purchased a ticket was doing it for the other's birthday,
Oh,
and you know, you can buy a diamond ring and it's going to look lovely on your hand, but if you can buy the opportunity for a person to take on transformation, something that lasts a lifetime, that carries with you, I mean, how much more valuable is that? That's how I feel.
okay. All right. Let's keep going with the comments and
All right.
questions, shall we?
So Dennis is saying, "Good morning, dear
Dennis.
Rosemary. I have two sisters that had an argument and stopped talking to each other. I wonder if one day they would be reconciled again and be like they used to be. Kind regards."
Oh, that's so sad. And actually, so what we're talking about in our webinar next week. Wouldn't it be fantastic if they could, why don't we gift them a ticket? Could we do that, Chris?
I think we could if they wrote to you at the office with the names and email addresses.
Dennis, would that work? I mean, they could be my guests. They probably would say, I'm not going if she's going. Well, I'm not going if she's going. What a shame, what sadness. If you could possibly get them there, I would be, we would be happy to gift them a ticket to the webinar. So write to me at the office, Rosemary at rosemaryalte.com. And or if maybe you'd like to come, Dennis, not your sisters, I'll gift you the ticket, and maybe you'll learn something about how to help them. I don't know, but anyway, your choice. It's up to you. There, talk about being spontaneous. Chris is probably thinking, "Wait a minute, do we have it? Can we do this? Yeah, we'll do it. No matter what, we'll do it." So, will they ever? I see this all the time. You might want them you might want to send them a recording of what we're doing now, or send them to whether it's YouTube or Facebook or something, so they can listen to this. They need to, both of them, stop being stubborn. Don't wait till one of them is dead before the other one starts to regret, because that's what happens so often. And I so often talk to people who, in the spirit world, who have died, who are continually saying, if only, I wish, I wish. And they shouldn't ever let it get to that point. It's all about communicating, and it's all about, misunderstandings, and it's all about having their own issues and their own baggage, which led them to do the things that they're doing now. Neither one giving in to the other. They both need a kick up the backside, don't they, Dennis? I'm sure you agree. But how sad it is for them. So hey, let them listen to this, and if you girls are listening, pack it in, talk to each other. You're welcome to come to my webinar, all three of you, if you like. Email me, Mark, Dennis, and let me know. Right, go for it. Right, Chris.
All right,
Sorry, I've probably thrown you a
no, I think
there.
that's great, and I want people out there who are listening to know how absolutely wonderful and generous you are in helping people every
Oh, no,
single day.
let's not go there. Let's moving on.
All right.
Moving on. That's
Calla
nice of you to
says,
say that, but moving on.
My dad told me once that when my mom had her stroke and he heard doctors saying she didn't have a chance to survive, he almost jumped from the hospital window. But just before, someone touched his shoulder. Hold on, I got to scroll down. And that made him stop from jumping. He said that was definitely an angel that made him react.
Yes. Yes.
Betta says, good morning, Rosemary and Grey Eagle. Your books are keeping me company during the lockdown here in Italy. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Rosa, Noah, and Michelle are saying thank you for the message.
You're very welcome.
Mary's saying, my 9-year-old struggles academically. And yesterday I found out he doesn't need special education. Maybe that could be a typo. Any advice?
Well, if he's struggling, then maybe it's that he does need, be careful though here, because you don't want your son to be pushed into a slot to be sort of labeled. It may simply be that he, uh, you know, has difficulty focusing. It may be that the teachers he has don't, uh, you know, that how can I say this? When I run my classes, I'm very, very aware when I have my students around me that each one of the students is different, and each one of them needs a different approach. So with some of the students, I'll be tough, and and because I know that that's what they need. Others I'll coax gently and carefully, and then there are others who I know sort of get bored easily, or they don't have the same you know, retention. It's you've got, each child is different, and each child needs and needs to be, each of us, not just children, but each of us needs a different approach. And as a teacher myself, I try to look for the right approach so that I can find the best in my student. And it seems to me, my darling, that you need to find someone who perhaps can come after school, not necessarily to have to put him in a special education class, but to have someone who comes to the house and is able to communicate with him, he's able to get to him. We recently have had with my grandson, he was having struggles. He wanted to play the piano, but he was bored with the piano and some of the stuff that he did and so on, and he wouldn't practice and all of that stuff. And so when I was there in the summer, I talked to him, and in fact gave him some piano lessons. And since then we've been working online. But what I did was I gave him things that I knew he would be thrilled to play or learn to play. And we're playing Christmas carols, and we're planning a little concert. And so basically what I did was I took a look at this child and figured out what will it take to make him more curious, or to keep his focus, or to make him interested. And I think that this is what you need to do with your son. I think if you can possibly, I don't know where you live, but if you can possibly find someone who looks at education in perhaps a different way. Maybe this boy of yours, and I think this is the case, maybe he doesn't like structured lessons. And what with everything going on at school now, and the way that kids go to school, or they're going to school online, and it certainly doesn't suit a lot of children. So it could be that too that is going on. So if you could find someone who's able to talk to him or tutor him, or even just sit with him and read with him, and perhaps you could maybe read with him as well and encourage him in his reading. Don't give up. Don't give up on him, because I don't think that he has a problem. I think the only problem that you perhaps have is the problem of finding a teacher who knows how to help him. That's the thing that I think is the issue here. Okay. Yes, Chris.
Mark's giving some feedback on the story. He says, Rosemary, the outcome of having spiritual visitors assist us only gives us insights that those who have these miracles are chosen to share their experiences to enlighten those who doubt. It's very real. I'm here to say they are.
Yes. Well, I can't agree with you more. Here's the difficulty, though, Mark. We have to be careful, don't we, to not push our ideas onto other people. We can get so excited sometimes about what is happening to us. We can get so excited about the experiences that we have, and we just want to share them. But we have to be careful not to share them with people who are simply not interested. We have to be careful not to force our opinions or our fabulous experiences onto other people. We have to be very patient and wait for people to ask for us. Oh gosh, isn't that hard to do sometimes? Yes, Chris.
Muriel, who you gave a message to earlier, says, thank you so much for answering my question, dear Rosemary. I'm also happy to see other people share my opinion about pink as your best color.
Well, thank you.
And
I,
Dennis,
I have to say, I have this lovely pink top that I really, really, not this one particularly, but I have a lovely pink top that I really, really like, and I have a great photo of it. And we wanted to use it on the website. My daughter said, absolutely not, right, Chris?
she did.
Absolutely not.
But she chose a great photo too. You
Oh,
agreed
yes,
with that
yes,
photo.
yes. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I might have gone too fast. Dennis said, with your offer, thank you. I'll do that. Hopefully, they would accept. Thank you so much, Rosemary. You are so kind. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.
You're really welcome. You're very welcome, Dennis.
Sarah Lynn saying, that's an amazing story. Mark says, LOL, love the tears and frozen smile. I've had them.
I bet you have.
Calla was replying to Dennis's offer. I'll do that. Hopefully they would accept. Thank you so much, Rosemary. You are so kind. No, I'm sorry. I already repeated that. I apologize. Sarah Lynn.
Let me just say to everybody out there listening, Chris has a very difficult job. The scrolling up, the scrolling down, the trying not to miss anybody, it's not easy at all. I know that it's not easy. So this is what I want you to do for us, Chris. I want you to stop saying I'm sorry, because we all know that you're doing your very, very best.
Okay. Sarah says, my sister-in-law Susan was home and she said to Leah, her son's girlfriend, it will be 3 years that mom left us and won't be here for Christmas. It's now 3 years and a musical knick-knack went off. It hasn't worked for years. I said it was mom saying, I'm here.
How lovely. Thank you for sharing that. You're absolutely right. Yes.
Let's see. Scrolling down. What does Gray Eagle wear? Is it tribal wear with a headpiece?
Oh, do we know who asked the question?
Mark.
Oh, all right. Yes. Well, just like everybody else, different things at different times. When I first saw him, he wore this incredible headdress. Those huge things that trail all the way down the back, and he would shake his head to sort of, and the feathers would shake. But mostly sorry, he's talking to me now, so I've got to describe him to you right now. So mostly when I see him, his hair is long and he wears 2 feathers which go down the back here into his hair, and some sort of the best thing I can describe so okay, I'm going to tell you it's sort of like a tunic. It's the best, and beaded. He's laughing. There you have it. That's the best. And I'm going to add, he's so handsome. He's got the most startling eyes I think I've ever seen. Really piercing. When he looks at me, he gives me that look. Yes, well, it's a bit scary sometimes. No, not really. He always looks at me with gentle eyes, but they are very fierce eyes too. Chris, moving on. Thank you for asking, though.
It reminds me your story, what you say Reese says to you, scary eyes, scary eyes.
He does. He says when he sees me on TV, he's watching a show or something, and he'll look at me and he'll open it. He's 7 years old. He's the most beautiful child. He opens his eyes wide. His eyes are exactly the same as mine, exactly the same color as mine, exactly the same shape as mine. So he opens his eyes really wide. He looks at me when he's watching me on the TV. He looks at me and he'll say, "Scary eyes, scary eyes." Actually, not scary, starry eyes. Starry eyes,
Oh,
starry
okay.
eyes, he says. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Karen says on hello, Rosemary. My only child, my daughter, born on the 11th, had identical twin daughters, born 7/11/20. We are thrilled. Wondering significance of the birth date. Thank you.
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not really into numbers, but I'm so thrilled that you have these babies, and thank you for sharing that with us. You know, I have my daughter, who was very much a miracle for me. I was on total and absolute bed rest for 9 months while I was carrying her, and almost lost her a couple of times, and almost lost me a couple of times. And then when my daughter was having Reese, he is another miracle, because she had all sorts going on with her, preeclampsia and so on and so forth, and panics and so on. But it wasn't so bad, because I knew that he would be safe, and I knew that he would be well, and I knew that my daughter would be safe and well too. You know, we forget sometimes, don't we, that childbirth can be a bit tricky, can be a bit hairy, but with all of the technology that we have now, it's so much easier and it's so much better. Thank you for sharing that story, and my blessings and my love go to those little ones that you now have to care for, to love, and to protect. Yes.
So it's noon now. We have one last question. It's from Sandy. I have a 2-year-old grandson that has conversations with me through his eyes. He often sees people, spirits, and is so afraid of them. How can I help?
Yes. Well, you know, you can talk to him. Uh, you know, we had this experience with Reese, and we had this experience with my daughter also. I had this experience with my daughter when she was little. But my daughter knew absolutely, because I would talk to her about her grandfather, who she knew and who she loved, her silly grandpa. She knew that he was around. Before that, she knew of her great grandfather. And, you know, Reese and I, we talk about, we talk about his puppy Piper, who is in heaven. We talk about the fact that, you know, so there are people who can see these things, and that it's perfectly normal and perfectly acceptable, and there's nothing to be frightened of. And so I think that you just need to be very open with your beliefs, and to say, you know, it's okay if we see these things, because, you know, they never hurt us when they were here. They certainly won't hurt us now they're in heaven, or wherever else you might think they are. So I think, you know, communication is the key, and sort of encouraging your grandson to talk to you. I love the fact that you talk to each other with your eyes, because my daughter and I do the same thing. My grandson and I do the same thing. So I love that you're paying attention. All right. I know that, Chris, you have to get off. You are journeying this afternoon, so I'm going to let you go. I'm so grateful for all of you coming to visit and listening to Storytime. We will not have Storytime next week, because we are live on our webinar 10 until 12. If you want to know more about the webinar, Chris has just put the link up, so click on the link and you can go to Eventbrite for a ticket, or email the office, rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com. Remember, Dennis, if you want to take us up on the offer, you've not got too much time to get back to us. Email us, rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com, if you have any other questions. And we'll be back on Thursday morning with our The Spirit World Sees All. And I shall be back and forth. Who knows what I shall be doing in the kitchen this weekend. So watch for me on wherever you're finding me now. Watch for me then. In the meantime, please, everybody, thank you. I'd like to thank you very much, Chris, for doing this for us. Thank you to Grey Eagle. What would we do without him? And thank you to all of you lovely people out there. Please have a very, very blessed rest of the day. And watch out for me. Go to my website, rosemary.altea.com, all one word, if you want to subscribe. Subscribe means just if you click, you'll be on our mailing list. If you don't click, it's also fine. And you'll see all sorts of little videos and all sorts of things that perhaps you didn't even know about me. So do visit our website again, Rosemary Altea, ROSEMARYALTEA, rosemaryaltea.com, and to find out more about anything. So have a wonderful, wonderful, and a very blessed weekend, everybody. And I'll see you soon. Bye bye.